In the vastness of the universe of ideas, philosophical questions are like twinkling stars that illuminate the darkness of the unknown. Amidst this intellectual spectacle, C.S. Lewis's 37 phrases emerge as constellations of insight and inquiry, inviting us to explore the deepest mysteries of human existence. These brief yet impactful words serve as portals to a journey of reflection and discovery. What do these phrases reveal about the nature of truth, morality, and life itself? How do they challenge us to rethink our own conceptions and delve into the depths of human thought? In this analysis, we will unravel the power of these C.S. Lewis phrases and explore the universal truths they reveal. 1. Everything changes, nothing ever stays the same. C.S. Lewis's quote addresses a fascinating and often paradoxical aspect of human experience: the nature of time and our perception of change. The first part of the statement, "Everything changes, nothing remains the same," reflects a fundamental truth in many aspects of life and the universe. From the laws of physics, which show that the universe is in a constant state of change and evolution, to transformations in society, technology, and our personal lives, change is a constant. The second part of the quote, "Isn't it funny how day by day nothing changes, but when you look back everything is different," speaks to how we perceive time and change in the short and long term. In day-to-day life, changes may seem insignificant or imperceptible because we are immersed in our routines, and the small daily variations do not seem to significantly alter the course of our lives. 2. There are far, far better things ahead than the ones you leave behind. This phrase by C.S. Lewis is an invitation to optimism and hope, encouraging us to look to the future with a positive perspective. The central idea is that, regardless of the losses or challenges we face, the future holds possibilities and joys that surpass what has been left behind. This thought can be particularly comforting in times of transition or loss, reminding us that closing one chapter in our lives makes room for the beginning of another, potentially more rewarding and enriching one. Lewis, with this statement, also touches on the transitory nature of life and the importance of not clinging excessively to the past or material things. Excessive attachment to what has been can prevent us from fully embracing new opportunities and experiences. The idea that the best is yet to come serves as a reminder to keep our minds and hearts open to the infinite possibilities the future holds. 3. Nothing in life ours to keep. This idea can be interpreted in various ways. In a material sense, it suggests that generosity and the act of sharing with others can enrich our own life experience, providing a sense of satisfaction and purpose that simple accumulation of material goods cannot offer. On a deeper level, it can be argued that only through generosity and altruism can we truly experience the richness of life, as it is in giving that we receive. Furthermore, Lewis may be touching on a broader spiritual or philosophical truth, where true freedom and fulfillment come from transcending selfishness and excessive attachment to worldly things. By opening ourselves to others and connecting to something greater than ourselves, we can find a sense of possession and belonging that is deeper and more enduring. 4. Give up yourself, and you will find your real self. This concept, often explored in spiritual and philosophical contexts, suggests that the true essence of who we are can only be found when we abandon the ego, superficial desires, and pretensions. Lewis is encouraging us to look beyond the layers of identity constructed by society, expectations, and our own ego. By giving up yourself, he refers to the act of setting aside these superficial layers to discover the true self that resides on a deeper level. This implies a process of detachment from material desires, selfish ambitions, and the relentless pursuit of external approval in order to connect with more authentic and enduring values. 5. Don't doubt your value. Don't run from who you are. Lewis suggests that our existence and essence have immense value simply because we are divine creations, regardless of how we compare ourselves to others or the ideals we may hold. This perspective invites us to recognize and value our own uniqueness and the unique contribution we can offer to the world. Furthermore, by stating, "Don't run from who you are," Lewis is encouraging us to confront and embrace our true nature, with all its imperfections and beauties. He suggests that authenticity and self-acceptance are essential for living a full and meaningful life. This acceptance is not just about recognizing our qualities, but also embracing our flaws and limitations, understanding that they are part of what makes us unique. 6. If you find in yourself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that you were made for another world. Lewis addresses the sensation, often experienced by many, that there is a kind of emptiness or longing within us that worldly joys and satisfactions cannot completely fill. This perception can lead to the conclusion that such insatiable desires point to a reality or existence beyond what is known and experienced in this physical world. The idea that we were made for another world suggests that human existence has a purpose and a meaning that extend beyond everyday life and earthly experiences. This view is rooted in many spiritual and religious traditions, which see life on earth as a journey or preparation for a higher or spiritual reality. 7. You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. Lewis is challenging the common perception that often prioritizes the physical and material, redefining human identity in a way that places the soul, or the spiritual essence, at the center. By stating that you are a soul, Lewis highlights the primacy and eternal importance of the soul compared to the physical body, which is temporary and transient. This view echoes many religious and philosophical traditions that see the body as a temporary vessel for the soul, which is the true essence of being. The idea that each of you will still be alive after the dissolution of the physical universe speaks to the belief in the continuity of the soul's existence beyond physical death. Lewis suggests that the true essence of who we are transcends the limitations of time and physical space, pointing to a spiritual reality that is eternal and unchanging. 8. Don't shine so others can see you. Shine so that, through you, others can see God. This idea is deeply rooted in the Christian notion of testimony, where an individual's life is seen as a mirror or a beacon that reflects God's light to the world. Instead of seeking personal glory, Lewis suggests that we should aspire to live in such a way that our actions, words, and even our presence allow others to glimpse divinity, goodness, and truth that transcend our individual existence. This perspective shifts the focus from the self to the other, and ultimately to the divine, promoting a way of living that is marked by generosity, service, and authenticity. By shining not for our own enhancement, but to illuminate the path to God, we are called to an existence that values humility and altruism, recognizing that our greatest contribution may be to facilitate others in finding their own connection to the sacred. 9. Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Lewis suggests that challenges and adversities are not mere meaningless obstacles, but rather instruments of growth and preparation. Difficulties have the potential to transform us, shaping our character and refining our virtues in ways that prosperity and ease simply cannot. This process of growth through adversity is often what prepares us to take on larger roles and responsibilities, leading us to destinies that far surpass our initial circumstances. By mentioning that God allows these experiences of low points, Lewis is touching on the notion that there is a divine order and purpose behind life's events, even those that seem negative at first glance. The lessons learned through adversity are seen as essential to our spiritual and personal development, teaching us perseverance, compassion, humility, and dependence on a force greater than ourselves. The idea that God does not make anyone wait unless it is good for him to wait reflects a view that God's timing is perfect, even if we do not immediately understand it. Patience and waiting are seen not as emptiness or meaningless inactivity, but as an opportunity for internal growth and preparation for what is to come. Thus, Lewis encourages us to face difficulties and periods of waiting not as abandonments, but as integral parts of a larger plan that leads us to an extraordinary destiny. 10. Experience is the most brutal of teachers. By referring to experience as the most brutal of teachers, Lewis is underscoring the often harsh and unforgiving nature of real life as a vehicle for learning. Unlike theoretical or academic learning, experience educates us through successes, and more often through failures, losses, and challenges. These moments can be painful and difficult to endure, but they are also incredibly potent in forging character, resilience, and wisdom. The second part of the phrase, "but you learn, my God, do you learn," emphasizes the effectiveness of this type of learning. Despite its brutality, or perhaps because of it, the lessons learned through experience tend to be deeply internalized. The direct experience of consequences, whether positive or negative, engraves knowledge in a way that passive instruction rarely achieves. 11. Repeated failures are fingerposts on the road to achievement. In describing failures as fingerposts, Lewis suggests that each failure serves as a lesson and a guide, pointing towards adjustments and changes necessary in our approaches, strategies, or even in our understanding. These posts illuminate the way, offering critical insights that help us navigate the path towards our goals. The idea of failing forward is particularly powerful. It implies that each failure, instead of pushing us backward, actually propels us forward, bringing us closer to success. This is because we learn, adapt, and grow through our experiences of failure. This concept encourages a mindset of resilience and persistence, where obstacles are seen as opportunities for development and improvement. 12. You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. Lewis challenges the notion that age is a barrier to aspirations, goals, and dreams. He emphasizes the infinite capacity of the human being to reinvent oneself and pursue new directions, regardless of where one stands in their life journey. This idea is an invitation to reject self-imposed limitations and social expectations that often accompany aging. Instead of viewing old age as a time to slow down or give up on new endeavors, Lewis suggests that there is always room for new beginnings and possibilities. This can be particularly inspiring for those who may feel they have missed opportunities or that it is too late to pursue passions or interests that have been set aside. Essentially, Lewis reminds us that the ability to dream and aspire knows no age limits. This message serves as an encouragement to continue seeking growth, fulfillment, and joy in all stages of our lives, embracing the ongoing journey of discovery and renewal. 13. Don't let your happiness depend on something you may lose. This brings forth a profound reflection on the nature of happiness and the importance of grounding it in aspects of life that are enduring and intrinsic, rather than external and transient. This idea encourages us to reconsider the sources of our joy and satisfaction, warning against basing our happiness on elements that are outside of our control and can easily be altered or lost, such as material possessions, social status, or even specific relationships. By highlighting the volatility of many of the things we value, Lewis suggests the pursuit of a more authentic and resilient happiness, one that is not shaken by the inevitable changes and challenges of life. This may involve cultivating internal virtues such as peace of mind, gratitude, self-love, and spirituality, which are less susceptible to external circumstances. 14. This world is a great sculptor's shop. It is a rich metaphor reflecting on the process of personal growth and transformation within the context of human existence. Comparing the world to a sculptor's workshop, Lewis suggests that life experiences, with their challenges and opportunities, act as the tools and techniques used by a sculptor to shape and define their creations. In this analogy, we humans are like unfinished statues, constantly being formed and refined by the hands of the sculptor, a metaphor for life's forces, circumstances, interactions with other people, and possibly a divine influence or destiny. Each experience carves our character, molds our values, and affects our life trajectory, contributing to the ongoing process of becoming who we are meant to be. The rumor that some statues will come to life can be interpreted as an allusion to the idea of reaching a state of awakening or spiritual enlightenment, where one becomes fully aware of their purpose, their essential nature, and their connection to something greater than themselves. This can also be seen as a moment of personal fulfillment, where a person transcends previous limitations and emerges more alive, authentic, and fully realized. 15. We are mirrors whose brightness, if we are bright, is wholly derived from the sun that shines upon us. Comparing ourselves to mirrors suggests that our value and brightness are not inherent, but reflected from a larger external source, in this case, symbolized by the sun. This source can be interpreted in various ways, including love, truth, beauty, or in a spiritual context, the divine. The idea that our brightness is wholly derived from this external source reminds us of our dependence and connection to something beyond ourselves to find meaning, purpose, and light in our lives. The second part of Lewis's reflection about the importance of keeping the self clean and bright to have a clear view of God reinforces the idea that our ability to perceive and reflect truth and beauty is affected by the state of our inner being. Just as the view of the moon can be obscured by a dirty telescope, our perception of the divine or the deeper meaning of life can be clouded by our faults, biases, or spiritual neglect. 16. There are two kinds of people, those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says in the end, "Thy will be done." Lewis delineates a fundamental division between those who choose to submit to divine will and those who insist on following their own path, regardless of divine guidance. By saying, "Thy will be done," an individual expresses a willingness to align with God's purposes and plans, placing God's wisdom and authority above their own preferences and desires. This voluntary submission is seen as an act of faith and trust in God's goodness and sovereignty. On the other hand, when God says, "Thy will be done" to an individual, Lewis suggests that God grants that person the freedom to choose their own path, even if that path leads to separation from God. This is an expression of divine justice and respect for human freedom, allowing the natural consequences of a person's choices to unfold. 17. C.S. Lewis's reflection. I have no duty to be anyone's friend, and no man in the world has a duty to be mine. No claims, no shadow of necessity. Friendship is unnecessary, like philosophy, like art, like the universe itself, for God did not need to create. It has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things which give value to survival, addresses the nature and value of friendship in a deeply contemplative manner. Lewis is highlighting that friendship, unlike basic needs such as food and shelter, is not essential for our physical survival. However, he argues that it is precisely this unnecessariness that elevates friendship, philosophy, art, and the universe to something that transcends mere functionality or utility. Friendship is valued not for its usefulness, but for its ability to enrich the human experience, adding a layer of meaning, joy, and depth to life that goes beyond mere survival. By stating that there is no duty in friendship, Lewis also suggests that true relationships should not be based on obligations or expectations, but rather on a free and mutual choice to share life, thoughts, and moments. This underscores authenticity and voluntariness as essential aspects of meaningful friendships. The comparison with God's creation of the universe serves to illustrate the idea that the intrinsic value of something may lie in its beauty, complexity, and ability to inspire, rather than in its functional necessity. Thus, Lewis leads us to appreciate friendship and, by extension, art, philosophy, and the universe as gifts that enrich our existence, making life not only bearable, but deeply valuable. 18. You will never make a good impression on other people until you stop thinking about what sort of impression you are making. Lewis suggests that conscious effort to shape how we are seen often has the opposite effect, leading to a perception of inauthenticity or excessive effort. This reflection encourages us to adopt a more genuine and less calculated approach in social interactions. When concern about the impression we are making is replaced by authenticity and being present in the moment, we are more likely to truly connect with others. This is because authenticity promotes an openness and vulnerability that are essential for meaningful human relationships. Additionally, excessive concern about image can distract us from listening and engaging meaningfully with others, as we are more focused on how we are being perceived than on the interaction itself. By releasing the need to control others' perception, we make space to be ourselves, which is often more attractive and impressive than any carefully constructed persona. 19. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Lewis highlights that the act of loving inherently involves the risk of pain and loss because opening the heart to others, whether to people, animals, or even passions, exposes us to the possibility of being hurt. However, he argues that the only way to completely avoid this pain, by isolating oneself and protecting the heart from any emotional involvement, comes at a much higher cost. By doing so, the heart, while safe from pain, also becomes isolated from any form of true love and consequently from one of the most enriching experiences of human life. The paradox presented by Lewis is that in attempting to shield the heart from any harm by making it unbreakable and impenetrable, we actually render it unredeemable. This suggests that a heart never exposed to the risk of love loses its ability to love and be loved, becoming hardened and insensitive. 20. What draws people to be friends is that they see the same truth. Highlights the importance of intellectual and spiritual connections in forming deep and meaningful friendships. Lewis suggests that at the core of true friendships, there is a mutual recognition and appreciation of certain values, ideas, or fundamental truths that transcend superficial circumstances or passing interests. This view underscores that friendships are not merely based on convenience, physical attraction, or social circumstances, but on a deeper connection that involves the discovery and acknowledgement of a shared truth. This truth can refer to a common understanding of life, moral principles, a shared passion for certain subjects, or even a similar worldview. The act of sharing this truth implies not only recognizing it, but also experiencing and exploring it together, which can provide a solid foundation for the development of a lasting friendship. Friendships rooted in this kind of mutual understanding tend to be more resilient and enriching, as they are based on the mutual appreciation of aspects of being that are considered significant and valuable. 21. Love is a steady wish for the loved person's ultimate good. Lewis redefines love beyond the common notion of intense emotion or physical attraction. He presents love as an active and deliberate commitment to the well-being and happiness of the other person, regardless of circumstances or one's own emotions. This conception of love as a steady wish emphasizes the volitional and intentional nature of true love. It is not seen as something passive or merely sentimental, but as a continuous choice to prioritize the good of the loved one. This implies a commitment to actions and decisions that promote the well-being and fulfillment of that person, even if it requires sacrifice or selflessness. By qualifying the supreme good so far as it can be attained, Lewis also acknowledges the reality of human limitations in life circumstances. He suggests that while love aspires to the ideal of the highest good for the loved one must act within practical possibilities and the limitations of the real world. 22. Do not waste time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did, and you will. explores a pragmatic and action-oriented approach to loving one's neighbor, a central idea in many ethical and religious traditions. Lewis suggests that instead of being paralyzed by internal analysis of our feelings or doubt about our ability to love others, we should simply start acting as if we love them. This principle reflects the idea that love can be both an action and a feeling, and that by choosing to act lovingly, regardless of our momentary feelings, we can cultivate genuine feelings of love over time. 23. No man knows how bad he is till he has tried very hard to be good. Addresses the complexity of human nature and the discovery of personal character through the effort to live according to high ethical or moral standards. Lewis suggests that it is in the process of striving to act rightly and do good that we often come face to face with our own failures, limitations, and negative tendencies. This reflection implies that understanding our own imperfections and the ability to recognize our faults are amplified when we put ourselves to the test, seeking to live virtuously. This can be a humbling experience as we discover that goodness and virtue are not as easily achieved as we might have imagined, thus revealing the depth and persistence of our flaws and weaknesses. 24. In God there is no hunger that needs to be filled, only plenteousness that desires to give, reflects a profound theological view on the nature of God and the relationship between the divine and humanity. Lewis suggests that God, being a being of fullness and perfection, has no needs or lacks. Instead, he is an infinite source of generosity and giving. This idea contrasts the conception of God with human nature, which is often driven by needs, desires, and a constant search for satisfaction. Instead, God is portrayed as someone whose essence is fullness, needing nothing from us to complete or improve his being. Therefore, God's desire to relate to humanity and provide for his creations is not motivated by a lack or need, but by an expansive and generous love that seeks to share his own fullness. 25. If a person thinks she is not conceited, she is very conceited indeed. Addresses the paradoxical nature of self-perception, especially regarding pride and vanity. Lewis suggests that excessive self-assurance in one's humility can ironically be a sign of deep pride. The act of considering oneself free from vanity can be in itself a manifestation of vanity, as it implies satisfaction with one's supposed moral superiority or self-control. This observation points to the complexity of human nature and the difficulty of achieving true humility, which is not based on denial of one's own faults, but on sincere recognition of them. True humility involves honest self-assessment and a willingness to accept that, as human beings, we are all fallible and susceptible to error and pride. 26. Pride is spiritual cancer. C.S. Lewis's view of pride as a spiritual cancer highlights the destructive nature of this vice in a person's spiritual and relational life. By describing pride in this way, Lewis suggests that it corrupts and consumes the ability to love, find satisfaction, and even exercise good judgment. Pride is presented not just as a minor character flaw, but as a corrosive force that can destroy the most fundamental aspects of human and spiritual well-being. The second quote expands on this idea, explaining how pride obstructs knowledge of God. Lewis illustrates this with the image of a proud person who is always looking down, both literally and metaphorically, judging others and circumstances from a position of supposed superiority. This posture of looking down symbolizes a self-imposed barrier that blocks sight and openness to higher realities, including the spiritual. Therefore, as long as one is stuck in this attitude of pride, they will be unable to perceive or connect with God, who is above in the spiritual sense. Both quotes emphasize the idea that pride not only negatively affects interpersonal relationships and self-image, but also constitutes a significant obstacle to spiritual growth and perception of realities beyond the self. Lewis invites us to recognize pride as a serious impediment to love, genuine happiness, and wisdom, encouraging a constant pursuit of humility as a path to spiritual health and true knowledge. 27. Only the pure in heart want to see God. This quote distills a profound truth about the nature of spiritual longing and the necessary condition for genuine seeking of God. Lewis suggests that purity of heart is not only a quality that makes someone fit to encounter God, but also the very characteristic that awakens the desire to seek Him. Purity of heart can be understood as a cleansing of intentions, an absence of falsehood or duplicity, and a sincerity in the pursuit of truth and good. This purity involves an orientation of the being toward what is genuine and good, free from the distortions of selfishness, pride, and disordered passions that can obscure spiritual vision and deflect the quest for truth. By stating that only the pure in heart desire to see God, Lewis is highlighting the idea that the desire to know and draw near to the divine requires a certain inner disposition characterized by purity and sincerity. This implies that the spiritual journey toward God begins with an inner work of purification and alignment of the desires of the heart with spiritual values. 28. Human history is the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which will make him happy. C.S. Lewis's statements about human pursuit of happiness outside of God reflect a deep critique of the nature of human aspirations and endeavors throughout history. Lewis suggests that the relentless quest for satisfaction in earthly things, whether wealth, power, pleasure, or status, is futile, as true happiness and peace cannot be found apart from God. God cannot give us a happiness and peace apart from Himself, because it is not there. This assertion highlights the view that any attempt to find lasting contentment outside of a relationship with the divine is doomed to failure, as the true source of peace and joy resides in God. To what will you look for help if you will not look to that which is stronger than yourself? This rhetorical question invites reflection on the need to seek support and guidance in a force greater than our own limited human capacity, suggesting that reliance on purely human resources or solutions is insufficient to address life's fundamental challenges. All that we call human history, money, poverty, ambition, war, prostitution, classes, empires, slavery, is the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which will make him happy. This observation about human history as a series of failed attempts to find satisfaction in earthly substitutes for God underscores the view that many human endeavors and conflicts stem from a misguided search for meaning and contentment. Together, these reflections by Lewis challenge us to reconsider the sources in which we seek happiness and purpose, encouraging a reorientation toward spiritual values and a deeper relationship with the divine as the path to true satisfaction and peace. 29. Forgiving does not mean excusing. This quote distinguishes two fundamental attitudes toward dealing with offenses or mistakes. By stating that forgiveness does not equate to excuse, Lewis highlights the importance of acknowledging the seriousness and reality of an offense without allowing it to perpetuate resentment or hostility. Forgiveness implies a conscious decision to release resentment or the desire for retaliation against someone who has wronged us, even when we recognize that the act committed against us was wrong and unjustifiable. This distinction is crucial because it recognizes the responsibility of the offender without allowing that offense to dominate future relationships or the emotional state of the offended party. In contrast, excusing someone often involves minimizing the offense or justifying the offender's behavior, potentially ignoring the harm caused. Thus, excusing can inadvertently enable or validate harmful behavior. Lewis suggests that forgiveness is a deeper act that requires considerable moral strength. It involves choosing to respond to wrongdoing with a kind of mercy that does not deny the injustice of the act, but chooses not to define oneself or be consummated by it. This approach to forgiveness allows for healing and reconciliation while maintaining moral integrity by acknowledging the gravity of the wrong. Therefore, a forgiveness, as Lewis conceives it, is an act of grace that transcends mere acceptance of others' faults, promoting the restoration of relationships without denying the reality of the harm caused. 30. Thirst was made for water, inquiry for truth. By C.S. Lewis offers a powerful metaphor that underscores the intrinsic connection between human pursuit of knowledge and the nature of truth. By comparing physical thirst for water with the innate desire to understand truth, Lewis invites us to reflect on the fundamental need we have to seek knowledge and understanding. Just as thirst is a natural condition that drives us to seek water to quench it and ensure our physical survival and well-being, curiosity and the desire to understand are fundamental impulses that lead us to seek truth, to satisfy our need for intellectual and spiritual knowledge and understanding. This comparison emphasizes that just as water is essential for physical life, truth is indispensable for our intellectual and spiritual life. Just as our bodies are designed to seek and consume water to maintain their health and proper functioning, our minds are naturally inclined to question, explore, and seek understanding to grow and thrive intellectually. 31. Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted, in spite of your changing moods. This phrase by C.S. Lewis offers a profound understanding of faith that transcends mere emotional or irrational belief. Lewis suggests that true faith involves a continuous commitment to convictions and truths that have been accepted by reason, even when emotions or circumstances may try to sway us. This conception of faith highlights its active and deliberate nature, not as a passive state of acceptance, but as a constant exercise of will and discipline. By defining faith as the art of staying firm, Lewis implies that it requires practice, skill, and conscious effort to sustain beliefs in the face of doubt, fear, or uncertainty that may arise with fluctuations in our emotional states or changes in life circumstances. By emphasizing that faith is based on things reason once accepted, Lewis is also rejecting the notion that faith and reason are mutually exclusive. Instead, he proposes that authentic faith has its roots in rational and conscious understanding, and that maintaining this faith requires a continuous and deliberate return to these rational principles, especially when challenged by ever-changing moods. 32. We meet no ordinary people in our lives. This statement by C.S. Lewis offers a deeply human perspective on the nature of interpersonal interactions and the uniqueness of each individual. Lewis suggests that every human encounter, no matter how brief or trivial it may seem, is an opportunity to connect with someone extraordinary, whose life, experiences, and perspectives are unique and valuable. This assertion challenges the notion that some people are common or ordinary, highlighting that all individuals have a story, an inner complexity, and a unique potential that make them worthy of attention and respect. Even those who may seem to play mundane roles in our lives can have unexplored depths and inner riches that deserve to be recognized and valued. 33. Everyone thinks forgiveness is a lovely idea until he has something to forgive. This quote addresses the challenging nature of forgiveness and how our perspective on it can change when we find ourselves in the position of needing to forgive someone for a transgression or injustice. Initially, many people may agree that forgiveness is a noble and desirable virtue, recognizing its moral value and the emotional benefits it can bring to both the aggressor and the offended party. However, when confronted with the reality of a situation where they have been hurt or harmed by someone else, the act of forgiveness can become much more difficult than they imagined. This quote highlights the human tendency to idealize forgiveness when we are not directly involved in situations of conflict or hurt. However, when we are faced with the real need to forgive someone who has hurt us, we may discover that forgiveness is a complex and painful process that challenges our emotions, self-image, and values. 34. Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. This quote highlights the importance of acting in accordance with our values and principles, regardless of the presence of supervision or the potential for reward or punishment. By defining integrity as doing the right thing, Lewis suggests that true integrity goes beyond simply following rules or social norms. It is a matter of moral and ethical principles. This implies making choices based on what is morally correct, even if it is easier or more advantageous to act otherwise. The part of the phrase that emphasizes that this should be done even when no one is watching underscores the importance of authenticity and consistency in our actions. This means that integrity is not something we display only to impress others or avoid negative consequences. It is a quality that is inherently valuable and shapes our conduct in all aspects of life. 35. Children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work. This quote emphasizes the priority and significance of caring for and raising children in a person's life. In doing so, Lewis highlights the responsibility and privilege that parents have to shape and influence the development and future of their children. This statement challenges the common notion that caring for children is merely a secondary part or an obligation that competes with other activities considered more important or meaningful. Instead, Lewis argues that children are not a distraction, but rather the central focus and primary responsibility of any adult who takes on the role of a father or mother. By recognizing children as the most important work, Lewis underscores the profound influence that parents have on the lives and development of their children. He suggests that parental care extends beyond simply providing material needs. It involves nurturing, educating, guiding, and loving children, preparing them to face life's challenges and become responsible and compassionate adults. 36. A children's story that can only be enjoyed by children is not a good children's story. Lewis argues that a story intended for children should be able to captivate and enchant not only the child audience, but also adults, regardless of their age. This statement suggests that the best children's stories transcend age limitations and have a universal appeal that resonates with readers of all ages. They should contain elements such as imagination, adventure, wisdom, and emotion, which can be appreciated and valued by people of all ages, from the youngest children to the oldest adults. By emphasizing that a good children's story should be able to attract a broader audience, Lewis acknowledges the importance of the power of narrative to educate, inspire, and entertain people of all ages. He suggests that, even as we grow and mature, we never lose our love for the magic of enchanting stories, and that we should continue to seek out that magic throughout our lives. 37. True humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. By stating that true humility is not thinking less of yourself, Lewis highlights that self-esteem and recognizing one's own worth are not incompatible with humility. On the contrary, genuine humility involves a balanced view of oneself, free from arrogance or pride, but also free from self-deprecation or underestimation. The second part of the phrase, "it's thinking of yourself less," points to the essence of true humility. It suggests that genuine humility is characterized by a shift of focus from the ego and one's own needs to the needs and interests of others. This implies a spirit of service, compassion, and consideration for others, where the self is not at the center of attention, but rather concern for the well-being and happiness of others. This quote challenges the common notion that humility is linked to self-denial or lack of self-esteem. Instead, Lewis argues that true humility is rooted in a balanced view of oneself, combined with a sincere willingness to put others first. As 37 quotes by C.S. Lewis offer a rich and multifaceted tapestry of wisdom and insight into various aspects of human life, faith, morality, and the human condition. Together, these quotations form a comprehensive panorama that invites deep reflection and personal introspection. A conclusion we can draw from these quotes is the importance of seeking truth, authenticity, and integrity in our lives. Lewis reminds us that true wisdom lies in the ability to look beyond superficial appearances and delve into the essence of things, cultivating a deeper understanding of the world and ourselves. Moreover, the quotes highlight the importance of empathy, compassion, and love for others, as well as the need to cultivate virtues such as humility, forgiveness, and gratitude in our daily lives. They challenge us to grow, to learn, and to evolve as individuals, constantly striving for moral and spiritual excellence. Another recurring theme in these quotes is the idea that true happiness and fulfillment are not found in material achievements or external successes, but rather in connection with the divine, in cultivating meaningful relationships and in serving others. Ultimately, C.S. Lewis's words remind us that the journey of life is a continuous search for meaning, purpose, and transcendence. They encourage us to embrace the challenges, to embrace the journey of life with courage and determination, and to constantly seek truth, goodness, and beauty in the world around us. Around us. Around us. Around us. Around us. Around us.
Dear brothers and sisters in Christ, today we will take you on a journey through the writings of Lewis in a unique way. For those who know him, you know that everything he writes has coherence with the Bible. And today, for those who may not know him, you will understand why he is one of the greatest writers that ever lived, as I have sought to explain each phrase and found biblical foundations for his words. Let's start with this excerpt from the book, Mere Christianity. I am sure that everyone has noticed what the real problem is. All the faculties of our life are good when they are directed in the right direction and not in the wrong direction. For example, the love of truth is one of the greatest virtues, and lying is one of the greatest vices. But why is lying a vice? It is because lying is the love of truth placed in the wrong direction. It is the truth used for selfish and evil purposes. The same can be said about religion and morality. They are good things when directed towards Christ, when used to draw us closer to him. But when they are used for any other purpose, they become, in fact, something completely different and wrong. When we place our faith, our hope, our morality, and our love in the right direction, which is Christ, then our whole life begins to align in the way it should be. If you seek Christ, you will find him, and with him, all the other things you need will be given to you. Christ is not just one truth among many. He is the truth. He is not just one life among many. He is the life. And he is not just one way among many. He is the way. When you surrender your life to him, you find that everything else falls into place. We can read in the Bible verses that bring foundations to his writings. In Proverbs 12:22, it says, "The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy." Lewis states that lying is the love of truth placed in the wrong direction. This verse reinforces the importance of truth, highlighting that God delights in those who speak the truth and abhors lying. In John 14:6, it says, Jesus answered, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Lewis claims that religion and morality are good when directed towards Christ. This verse confirms that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life, essential for a correctly directed life. In 1 Corinthians 10:31 it says, "So whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." Lewis emphasizes that all the faculties of life should be directed towards Christ. This verse complements the idea that all our actions should be done for the glory of God. In Jeremiah 29:13 it says, "You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart." Lewis says that if you seek Christ, you will find him. This verse reinforces the promise that God can be found by those who seek him sincerely. In Matthew 6:33, it says, "But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." Lewis mentions that all the other things you need will be given to you when you seek Christ. This verse confirms that by putting God first, your needs will be met. In John 8:32, it says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Lewis claims that Christ is the truth. This verse highlights the liberating power of the truth, which is found in Jesus. In Proverbs 3:5-6, it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." Lewis says that when you surrender your life to Christ, everything falls into place. This verse confirms that trusting in God and acknowledging him in all aspects of life leads to a straight and aligned path. After this incredible experience, are you ready for all 40 of Lewis's quotes? Let's begin. 1. True humility is not thinking less of yourself, it is thinking of yourself less. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis redefines humility as a balanced view of oneself, free from arrogance and self-deprecation. True humility is characterized by putting others' needs ahead of one's own, promoting a spirit of service and compassion. He challenges the notion that humility is self-denial, suggesting that it is, in fact, a sincere disposition to value others. In Philippians 2:3-4, it says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others." These verses speak about humility and caring for others, as Lewis tells us. 2. There are far, far better things ahead than any we leave behind. Quote from the book, Letters to an American Lady. Lewis invites us to look to the future with optimism. He reminds us that despite losses and challenges, what is to come can be even more rewarding. He also emphasizes the importance of not clinging to the past or material things, making room for new opportunities and experiences that can enrich our lives. In Philippians 3:13-14, "Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize, for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus." These verses encourage us to look forward with hope, as Lewis does. 3. Nothing in life is ours to keep. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis reminds us that life is impermanent. He suggests that generosity and the act of sharing enrich our lives more than the mere accumulation of possessions. On a deeper level, true freedom and fulfillment come from transcending selfishness and attachment to material things. By opening ourselves to others and connecting with something greater, we find a deeper and more lasting sense of belonging. In Matthew 6:19-21, it reinforces Lewis's idea about how our material possessions are fleeting, showing us the importance of spiritual treasures. "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In 1 Timothy 6. 7. It reinforces how everything in this world was not made for us, and reinforces the idea of not giving too much importance to it. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. 4. Give up yourself, and you will find your real self. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. For Lewis, finding our true self requires abandoning the ego and superficial desires. He encourages us to look beyond the identities imposed by society and our own ego. Giving up oneself means letting go of these superficial layers and connecting with authentic and enduring values, thereby discovering our deeper essence. In Matthew 16:24, 25, it speaks about the need to abandon the ego to find true life in Christ. Then Jesus said to his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it." In Galatians 2:20, it reflects on the transformation of the self through faith in Christ. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. 5. Do not doubt your value. Do not run from who you are. Quote from the book, Prince Caspian. Lewis reminds us that our existence has immense value because we are divine creations. He invites us to recognize our uniqueness and the unique contribution we can make to the world by saying, "Do not run from who you are." He encourages us to embrace our true nature with all its imperfections and beauties. Authenticity and self-acceptance are essential for living a full and meaningful life. In Psalm 139, 13-14 it says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." This shows the importance and value of each individual as a divine creation. 6. No man knows how bad he is till he has tried very hard to be good. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis explores the complexity of human nature, suggesting that it is in trying to live virtuously that we discover our flaws and limitations. This effort reveals the depth of our defects, showing that true goodness is difficult to achieve and that our weaknesses are more persistent than we imagine. And in Romans 7:18-19, it says, "For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing." These verses reflect on the internal struggle between good and evil. 7. You do not have a soul, you are a soul, you have a body. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis redefines human identity by placing the soul at the center. He emphasizes that we are eternal souls with temporary bodies, echoing religious traditions that see the body as a vessel for the soul. The true essence of who we are transcends time and space, pointing to an unchanging spiritual reality. In Genesis 2:7 it says, "Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being." This speaks about the creation of man as a living soul. In 1 Corinthians 15:44, It reflects on the distinction between the physical body and the spiritual body. It is sown a natural body. It is raised a spiritual body. If there is a natural body, there is also a spiritual body. 8. Do not shine so that others can see you. Shine so that through you others can see God. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis emphasizes that we should live in a way that our actions reflect divinity, not seeking personal glory, but allowing others to see God's goodness and truth through us. He calls us to a life of humility and service, where our greatest contribution is helping others find their own connection with the sacred. In Matthew 5:16, it says, "In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." This verse encourages us to let our actions reflect the glory of God. 9. Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny. Quote from the book, The Problem of Pain. Lewis sees challenges as opportunities for growth. Adversities shape our character and refine our virtues, preparing us for destinies greater than we could imagine. He suggests that there is a divine purpose in difficulties, teaching us perseverance, compassion, and humility. Patience during tough times is essential preparation for an extraordinary future. In Romans 5:3-4, not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. These verses talk about how tribulations produce perseverance and character. In James 1:2-4, it speaks about how difficulties shape and complete our character. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. 10. Experience is the most brutal of teachers. Quote from the book, Collected Letters of C.S. Lewis. Lewis highlights the harshness of experience as a powerful teacher. Unlike theoretical learning, real life teaches us through successes and, more often, through failures and challenges. These lessons, though painful, are deeply internalized, forging character, resilience, and wisdom uniquely and enduringly. In Hebrews 12:11, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. This reinforces the idea that discipline can be painful but fruitful in the long term, as Lewis suggests. 11. What draws people to be friends is that they see the same truth. Quote from the book, The Four Loves. Lewis emphasizes that deep friendships are based on intellectual and spiritual connections. He suggests that the essence of true friendships lies in the mutual recognition of fundamental values, ideas, or truths. True friendships go beyond convenience or superficial attraction. They are based on the discovery and appreciation of a shared truth, whether it is a common understanding of life, moral principles, or a shared passion. This type of friendship, rooted in deep understandings, tends to be more enriching. As it says in Philippians 2:1-2, "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind." These verses show the importance of unity and sharing feelings and truths among friends. 12. You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream. Quote from the book, The Chronicles of Narnia. Lewis reminds us that age is not a barrier to new aspirations. He emphasizes the infinite capacity to reinvent ourselves and seek new directions at any stage of life. This thought encourages us to reject self-imposed limitations and social expectations, reminding us that there is always room for new beginnings and possibilities, regardless of age. As it says in Isaiah 40:31, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." This verse encourages perseverance and renewal at any stage of life. In Joel 2:28, it speaks about how all ages have the potential for new dreams and visions, and afterward, "I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions." 13. Do not let your happiness depend on something you may lose. Quote from the book, The Four Loves. Lewis invites us to reflect on the nature of happiness, suggesting that we base it on lasting and intrinsic aspects of life. He warns against depending on external and volatile things, such as material possessions or social status. Instead, we should seek resilient happiness, founded on internal virtues like peace of mind, gratitude, and self-love, which are not easily shaken by external circumstances. In Philippians 4:11-13, it says, "I am not saying this because I am in need, for I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength." Here Paul speaks about finding contentment and happiness in God, regardless of external circumstances. In Matthew 6:19-21 it says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." These verses teach us not to place our trust and happiness in material things, but in eternal values. In Hebrews 13:5 it says, "Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" This verse is an exhortation to satisfaction and contentment with what we have, trusting in God's constant presence. 14. This world is the workshop of a great sculptor. Quote from the book, The Problem of Pain. Lewis uses the metaphor of the sculptor to reflect on personal growth. He suggests that life experiences, with their challenges and opportunities, shape our character and values, like a sculptor refining his creations. Each experience sculpts us, contributing to the ongoing process of becoming who we are meant to be. The rumor that some statues will come to life symbolizes spiritual awakening and personal fulfillment. In Jeremiah 18:3-6, it reflects on God shaping our lives like a potter molds clay. "So I went down to the potter's house, and I saw him working at the wheel. But the pot he was shaping from the clay was marred in his hands. So the potter formed it into another pot, shaping it as seemed best to him. Then the word of the Lord came to me. He said, 'Can I not do with you, Israel, as this potter does? Declares the Lord. Like clay in the hand of the potter, So are you in my hand, Israel. 15. Everyone thinks forgiveness is a lovely idea until they have something to forgive. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis highlights the difficulty of forgiveness when we are directly affected by a transgression. While many see forgiveness as a noble virtue, forgiving someone who has hurt us is an emotional and moral challenge. This quote reveals how we idealize forgiveness until we face the reality of practicing it, showing the complexity and effort involved in this process. In Matthew 18:21-22 it says, Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? Up to 7 times. Jesus answered, I tell you, not 7 times, but 77 times. This speaks to the difficulty and importance of continual forgiveness, as Lewis does. 16. There are 2 kinds of people, those who say to God, Thy will be done, and those to whom God says, in the end, Thy will be done. Quote from the book, The Great Divorce. Lewis divides humanity into those who submit to the divine will and those who follow their own path, saying Thy will be done is an act of faith and trust in God's wisdom. On the other hand, when God grants freedom and to human will, even if it leads to separation from Him, it is an expression of divine justice and respect for the freedom of choice. In Romans 1:24-25, it speaks about God allowing people to follow their own ways as an expression of His divine justice. Therefore God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts to sexual impurity for the degrading of their bodies with one another. They exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator, who is forever praised. Amen. 17. I have no duty to be anyone's friend, and no man in the world has a duty to be mine. No claims, no shadow of necessity. Friendship is unnecessary, like philosophy, like art, like the universe itself, for God did not need to create. It has no survival value. Rather, it is one of those things which give value to survival. Quote from the book, The 4 Loves. Lewis highlights that friendship, although not essential for physical survival, profoundly enriches life. He argues that the unnecessariness of friendship elevates its value, providing meaning and joy that go beyond mere functionality. True relationships should be free of obligations and based on the mutual choice to share life. Comparing friendship to God's creation of the universe, Lewis illustrates that intrinsic value lies in beauty and the capacity to inspire, making friendship a gift that makes life deeply valuable. As it says in Ecclesiastes 4:9-10, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. These verses show the importance of companionship and mutual support. 18. You will never make a good impression on other people until you stop thinking about what sort of impression you are making. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis suggests that trying to shape how we are seen can lead to inauthenticity. He encourages us to be genuine in our interactions, focusing on the present and not on others' perceptions. Authenticity promotes true connections, as it allows us to be ourselves, creating more meaningful and impressive relationships than any constructed facade. As it says in 1 Samuel 16:7, But the Lord said to Samuel, Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. This verse shows the importance of being genuine and focusing on the inner essence. 19. To love at all is to be vulnerable. Quote from the book, The Four Loves. Lewis asserts that to love involves the risk of pain and loss, as opening one's heart makes one vulnerable. However, avoiding this pain by isolating oneself results in a hardened heart, incapable of loving or being loved. He suggests that the vulnerability of love, despite its risks, is essential for experiencing a rich and fulfilling life. In 1 John 4:18, it says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. The one who fears is not made perfect in love." This verse speaks to how love involves vulnerability, but also casts out fear. 20. Repeated failures are signposts on the road to achievement. Quote from the book, Collected Letters of C.S. Lewis. Lewis suggests that each failure is a valuable lesson, guiding us toward necessary adjustments in our strategies and approaches. These signposts show us the way, turning obstacles into opportunities for growth. The idea of failing forward implies that each failure propels us forward, bringing us closer to success through continuous learning and adaptation. As it says in Proverbs 24. 16. For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble when calamity strikes. This verse shows resilience and the ability to learn from failures, as Lewis suggests. In Romans 5:3-4. It speaks about how difficulties strengthen us and prepare us for success. Not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. 21. To love is to be constantly desiring the supreme good of the loved person. Quote from the book, The Four Loves. Lewis redefines love as an active commitment to the well-being of another, beyond mere emotion or physical attraction. He emphasizes that true love is a continuous choice to prioritize the good of the loved person, even if it requires sacrifice. Recognizing life's limitations, Lewis suggests that we should aspire to the highest good possible within our capacities. As it says in 1 Corinthians 13:4-7, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. These verses define love as an active commitment to the well-being of another. 22. Do not waste time bothering whether you love your neighbor. Act as if you did, and you will presently come to love him. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis proposes a practical approach to loving one's neighbor. Instead of analyzing our feelings, we should act in a loving manner. This deliberate action can cultivate genuine feelings of love over time, demonstrating that love is both an action and a feeling. As it says in 1 John 3:18, Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. This verse encourages us to practice love through actions. 23. If I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis explores the feeling of emptiness that worldly satisfactions cannot fill. This longing points to a reality beyond the physical world, suggesting that human existence has a purpose that transcends everyday life. The idea that we were made for another world indicates that our journey on earth is a preparation for a higher and more spiritual reality. As it says in Philippians 3:20, "But our citizenship is in heaven, and we eagerly await a Saviour from there, the Lord Jesus Christ." This speaks about our heavenly citizenship and the expectation of eternal life with Christ. In John 14:2-3, it speaks about Jesus' promise of a place prepared for us in heaven. "My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am." 24. In God there is no hunger that needs to be filled, only plenteousness that desires to give. Quote from the book, The Four Loves. Lewis presents God as a being of fullness and perfection, without needs or lacks. Unlike human nature, driven by constant desires and pursuits, God is an infinite source of generosity. His desire to relate to humanity comes not from a need, but from an expansive love that seeks to share his own fullness. As it says in Ephesians 3:20, "Now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us." This verse speaks about God's abundance and generosity. 25. If a person thinks they are not conceited, they are very conceited indeed. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis highlights the paradox of self-perception. Believing oneself to be free of vanity can ironically be a sign of deep pride. He suggests that true humility comes from the sincere recognition of one's own flaws, accepting that we are all susceptible to error and pride. In Proverbs 16:18, it says, "Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall." This verse speaks about the destructive nature of pride, as Lewis does. 26. Pride is a spiritual cancer. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis compares pride to a spiritual cancer that destroys the capacity to love and judge rightly. Pride creates a barrier that prevents connection with God and the perception of higher realities. He warns about the corrosive impact of pride on our relationships and spiritual growth, encouraging the pursuit of humility as the path to true happiness and wisdom. As it says in James 4:6, "But he gives us more grace. That is why Scripture says, 'God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble.'" This verse speaks about how God opposes the proud, but favors the humble. In Proverbs 29:23 it says, "Pride brings a person low, but the lowly in spirit gain honor." This verse speaks about how pride leads to a fall, while humility brings honor. 27. Only those with pure hearts want to see God. Quote from the book, The Problem of Pain. Lewis emphasizes that purity of heart is essential for genuinely seeking God. He defines purity of heart as sincerity and the absence of falsehood, aligning our desires with spiritual values. The spiritual journey begins with internal purification, directing our being toward what is true and good, free from selfishness and pride. In Matthew 5:8, it says, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God." This verse speaks about purity of heart as a condition for seeing God. 28. A children's story that can only be enjoyed by children is not a good children's story in the slightest. Quote from the book, On Stories and Other Essays on Literature. Lewis argues that good children's stories should delight both children and adults. The best stories transcend age, containing elements of imagination, adventure, and wisdom that resonate with everyone. He suggests that the power of narrative should educate, inspire, and entertain people of all ages, preserving the magic of stories throughout life. In Matthew 18:3 it says, "And he said, 'Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven.'" This verse highlights the importance of maintaining the simplicity and wonder of childhood in our understanding, as Lewis does. 29. To forgive does not mean to excuse. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis distinguishes between forgiveness and excuse, emphasizing that forgiving acknowledges the seriousness of the offense, without perpetuating resentment. Forgiveness involves releasing the desire for retaliation, recognizing the wrong but choosing mercy. Excusing, on the other hand, may minimize the offense and allow harmful behaviors. For Lewis, forgiveness is an act of moral strength that promotes healing and reconciliation without denying the reality of the harm caused. In Ephesians 4:32, it says, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as in Christ God forgave you." This verse shows us what true forgiveness is. 30. Thirst was made for water, inquiry for truth. Quote from the book, The Pilgrim's Regress. Lewis compares physical thirst for water with the human desire to understand the truth. Just as water is essential for physical life, truth is indispensable for intellectual and spiritual life. Our curiosity and desire to understand are natural impulses that lead us to seek knowledge and comprehension, essential for our growth and prosperity. In John 8:32, it says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." This speaks about the pursuit of truth as essential for spiritual freedom. 31. Faith is the art of holding on to things your reason has once accepted, in spite of your changing moods. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis defines faith as a continuous commitment to rational convictions, even when emotions fluctuate. Faith is active, requiring practice and discipline to maintain beliefs in the face of doubts and uncertainties. Lewis proposes that true faith is based on reason and conscious understanding and must be constantly reaffirmed, especially when challenged by changing emotional states, as it says in 2 Corinthians 5:7, "For we live by faith, not by sight." This speaks to the importance of living by faith, not by visible circumstances, as Lewis suggests. 32. We meet no ordinary people in our lives. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis argues that every human interaction is a chance to connect with someone extraordinary. Everyone has a unique story and potential that deserve attention and respect. This perspective challenges us to see beyond superficial appearances and recognize the depth and value in each individual, highlighting that no one is truly ordinary or common. In Genesis 1:27 it says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them." This speaks to how each person is created in the image of God and therefore unique and valuable, as Lewis suggests. 33. We are mirrors whose brightness, if we are bright, is wholly derived from the sun that shines upon us. Quote from the book, The Weight of Glory. Lewis compares us to mirrors that reflect a greater light, like the sun. Our value and brightness come from an external source, whether love, truth, beauty, or the divine. He highlights our dependence on this source to find meaning and purpose. The second part emphasizes that our ability to reflect this light is affected by the state of our inner being, just as a dirty telescope obscures the view of the moon. By keeping ourselves clean and bright, we can better perceive and reflect truth and beauty. In Matthew 5:14, 16, it speaks about being light in the world and reflecting God's glory. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. 34. Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching. Quote from the book, The Screwtape Letters. Lewis defines integrity as acting according to our values and principles, regardless of supervision. True integrity goes beyond following rules. It involves doing what is morally right, even when it is not advantageous. Authenticity and consistency are crucial, indicating that integrity is an intrinsic quality that guides our conduct in all circumstances. In Proverbs 11:3 it says, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity." This verse speaks about integrity as a guide, exactly as Lewis does. 35. Children are not a distraction from more important work. They are the most important work. Quote from the book, Letters to Malcolm, chiefly on prayer. Lewis emphasizes that raising children is the most important task an adult can have. He challenges the idea that caring for children is a secondary obligation, asserting that children are the primary priority. Raising and guiding children involves nurturing, educating, and loving, shaping future, responsible, and compassionate adults. In Psalm 127:3-4 it says, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth." This verse speaks about the importance and value of children. 36. Human history is the long, terrible story of man trying to find something other than God which will make him happy. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis critiques humanity's pursuit of happiness in earthly things, stating that true peace and joy can only be found in God. He suggests that human history is filled with failed attempts to find satisfaction outside the divine. Lasting happiness comes from a deep relationship with God, not from wealth or power. In Ecclesiastes 1:2-3 it says, "Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun?" This speaks to the futility of human pursuits without God. In Romans 1:21-23, it reflects on humanity's search for substitutes for God. "For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him, but their thinking became futile and their foolish hearts were darkened. Although they claimed to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images made to look like a mortal human being, and birds and animals and reptiles." 37. Everything changes, nothing remains the same. Quote from the book, The Screwtape Letters. Lewis reflects on the inevitable nature of change. Everything is in constant transformation, from the universe to our personal lives. Daily changes may seem insignificant, but looking back, we realize how profound and significant they are. In Ecclesiastes 3:1-8 it says, There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to uproot. These verses reflect the inevitability of change and the different seasons of life. 38. Prayer doesn't change God, it changes me. Quote from the book, Letters to Malcolm, chiefly on prayer. Lewis suggests that the purpose of prayer is not to influence God or alter his plans, but to transform the person who prays. Prayer is a practice that shapes us, aligning our desires and perspectives with God's will, promoting spiritual growth and self-awareness. In Romans 12:2, it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." This verse speaks to how the renewal of the mind through prayer helps us discern God's will, demonstrating that prayer does not change God, but transforms us. 39. Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important. Quote from the book, Mere Christianity. Lewis highlights the extreme nature of Christian claims. If the Christian faith is true, its implications are infinite and crucial for all human existence. If it is false, it is irrelevant. There is no middle ground, as the Christian faith demands total commitment and a profound re-evaluation of life and purpose. In 1 Corinthians 15:14, it says, "And if Christ has not been raised, our preaching is useless, and so is your faith." This verse emphasizes that the resurrection of Christ is central to the Christian faith. If it is not true, the Christian faith is useless, highlighting the infinite importance of the truth of Christianity. In John 14:6, it says, "Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." In this verse, Jesus declares himself as the only way to God, underscoring the supreme importance of Christianity if it is true. This reinforces the idea that Christianity, if true, is of infinite importance. 40. Pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Quote from the book, The Problem of Pain. Lewis argues that pain is one of God's most effective methods of gaining our attention. While pleasures can distract us and conscience can be ignored, pain is an experience that cannot be avoided. It serves as a powerful alert that forces us to reflect, seek deeper answers, and reconsider our relationship with the divine. In 2 Corinthians 12:9-10, it says, "But he said to me, My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." These verses show that God manifests powerfully in our weaknesses and pains, reinforcing the idea that pain is a means by which God awakens and strengthens us. C.S. Lewis's 40 quotes provide a profound panorama of wisdom about life, faith, morality, and the human condition. These quotes highlight the importance of seeking truth, authenticity, and integrity. Lewis reminds us to look beyond superficial appearances and understand the essence of things, cultivating a deeper view of the world and ourselves. Empathy, compassion, and love for others are essential. He emphasizes the need for humility, forgiveness, and gratitude, challenging us to grow morally and spiritually. Lewis also teaches that true happiness is not in material achievements, but in connection with the divine and service to others. In summary, C.S. Lewis's words remind us that life is a constant search for meaning and purpose, encouraging us to face challenges with courage and seek truth, goodness, and beauty around us. Thank you to everyone who made it to the end. Your participation in our channel brings us great joy. May God greatly bless you and your families. See you in the next video. 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 Video.